Ultron is one of the best Marvel villains ever created, with having some of the most impactful moments in Marvel history, and is one of the biggest threats to the Avengers, and in most stories, he flat out kills most of the Avengers, and then goes on to kill every other big superhero group in the Marvel Universe. Groups like X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and so many more. Yet, when it comes to his only live-action movie appearance in Marvel's Avengers Age of Ultron, he is completely ruined from his character design to his personality, and to how the so-called Age of Ultron only lasted 3 days. Like, Ultron's whole thing is that he kills the Avengers, and in this movie he doesn't even kill a single member of the Avengers. And if you're unfamiliar of what Ultron is supposed to be, his whole thing is that once he's created, he's supposed to be unstoppable. So unstoppable that he wipes out most of humanity, and the only ones that are left are some of the best heroes in the Marvel Universe, and even they are like, yeah, he's too powerful, we're cooked. That is the level Ultron is at. And the Marvel superheroes that are left aren't even hiding from the real Ultron, they are hiding from his drones. So that just shows you how powerful Ultron is, and shows that Ultron is really at a different level from every other Marvel character. And I know Vision is the one who ultimately defeats Ultron in the Age of Ultron, and he has the Mind Stone, which is pretty powerful, but even though they give some reason to why Ultron got defeated so easily, this movie still makes so many other mistakes with Ultron. Like, first off, the fact that Ultron doesn't kill any of the Avengers in this movie is baffling. Like, half of the group use this technology and are just in rooms filled with tech, that he should be easily able to wipe out half of these guys out in his first day before they can even create Vision. And you might be thinking, well, that's no fun. If Ultron just kills the Avengers in the first second, that would just be a boring story, wouldn't it? Well, to that I say, that's kind of the point of Ultron. He's always supposed to win. The point of Ultron is that he's supposed to be the idea of humanity's mistake by going too far with technology, kind of how like the Terminator does with Skynet, that we go too far with technology that we kind of ultimately create our own downfall. That's why in the most popular story of Ultron, they don't really try defeating Ultron, they just go back in time to a time before he was even created to stop Ultron from being created, which I think is a better way to tackle taking down Ultron than what Age of Ultron tried to do. But if I do have to give some credit to the MCU, it's how they did Ultron in What If. Now, season 1 of What If had some pretty solid episodes, but there was one episode that stood above the rest, that being What If Ultron won. Now, when I went into this episode, I honestly thought they were going to fumble Ultron's story again like they did in Age of Ultron, but they nailed this version of Ultron perfectly. Like, they did everything right with this Ultron, to giving him a new, better look than what he had in the movie, with these Infinity Stones and this cool helmet and this cape, to him taking down Earth's Avengers easily, to then defeating Thanos in 1 second, to then taking down Captain Marvel, arguably the strongest character in the MCU, to then getting so powerful that he can literally hear the Watcher narrating the episode, which was such a cold moment when I first watched this episode. Like, Ultron turning his head and seeing the Watcher was literally such a crazy moment that the Watcher literally had to stop watching him because he was afraid of his own life. Like, this version of Ultron is really goated. Then even after the Watcher stops watching him, Ultron breaks reality to get into the same dimension Watcher's in, and then Ultron starts throwing hands with the Watcher and fights him while traveling through dimensions, which is such a cool moment and is what Multiverse of Madness should have been, in my opinion. And after fighting the Watcher through all these different dimensions, he beats the Watcher in a fight, and then the Watcher runs away fearing for his life. What If Ultron won is such a great representation of how great Ultron is and how great he can be in the MCU, and shows how Ultron is really just an unstoppable force constantly evolving. And I'm not going to be talking about that Mickey Mouse ending where everyone is just able to throw hands with Ultron, even people without powers like Peggy Carter. Like, Ultron really took out the Avengers, the Guardians, Thanos with 4 Infinity Stones, and the Watcher, and you really think I'm going to believe that these Walmart Avengers are really able to do anything? Well, maybe except for Doctor Strange. You know, he was really backpacking the whole entire Walmart Avengers throughout that whole entire fight. Anyways, I really think Ultron shines in the animated stuff because they aren't afraid to kill everyone, and most of the characters in these stories are not safe from Ultron's wrath. Like in the Young Avengers movie, which you should watch, it's pretty amazing, where he killed most of the Avengers, and even the Avengers that did survive went into hiding, and the only ones that are really left are the Avengers' children. And this Ultron is the super medicine, keeping Tony Stark trapped and just like having him tortured this whole entire time to make him confess to where he's hiding the Avengers' children. And this Ultron is just on demon tying this whole entire movie with this cool aura and the cool voice, and everything about Ultron just really gives him so much aura. And what I also like about this Ultron is that he makes Ultron robots for every Avengers member, like Captain America, like Iron Man, like Black Widow, like Black Panther, and all the other Avengers members. Even though this Ultron is pretty cool, he does ultimately get defeated by the Hulk, but this is the version of the Hulk where he's actually a threat, unlike the MCU versions where, you know, the Hulk would just get beat up by Thanos in a 1v1 and would have performance issues for the rest of the movie. Man, the MCU Hulk really has done damage to the image of Hulk forever. And even though Hulk does defeat Ultron, they still have to throw Ultron into space because they fear that he could come back and he still has the power to self-repair himself, that they have to throw him into space because that's how powerful he really is. This whole next Avengers movie was just Ultron on timing. The whole time he could not be stopped. And that is how Ultron is supposed to be. He shouldn't be able to be stopped. He's kind of like the doomsday for the Avengers. These types of characters are only there to be brought in to kill the main heroes, and if they don't do that, they're kind of missing the point of why the characters are even there for the first place. And Ultron has also made some other great appearances in other great animated stuff, like the animated Marvel's Avengers show. And most of the time when he's in these animated stuff, his voice is always so cool. Ultron, in my opinion, is the Avengers' greatest villain and should have been treated better in the MCU. Most of the time, the MCU does tend to do their big villains justice, like a Loki, like a Thanos, and even Baron Zemo, who was pretty cool and had some cold moments in the Civil War movie. But even though they made all the other Avengers big threats, they messed up on the Avengers' best villain by making him lackluster. Like maybe at the point they were at in the MCU, they didn't want to kill off the Avengers because it was only their second Avengers movie. But then why would you do the Ultron story without having all the cool aspects of what makes a good Ultron story? Now don't get me wrong, I think there's some cool aspects of Ultron in this movie that make him decent, like the one-liners he drops that I think are pretty cool. But even though he's dropping all these cool one-liners, Ultron's whole personality and appearance in Age of Ultron is so out of character to what Ultron really is. Like Ultron having these cool one-liners I do think are cool, but they do more feel like they're trying to just copy Bane's version of the Batman Rises because he was the most recent and cool big villain at the time. And then they changed Ultron's design by giving him this Voldemort no-nose looking face. Like Ultron's main design in the animated shows and the comics, I honestly think is perfect. They have tried other iterations that I do think they look pretty solid, but the one they do in the MCU just isn't it. Like the original design of Ultron with his mouth and eyes oozing of red energy and his mouth looking like a wicked smile that is so menacing, and they take all his aura away and replace it with this bland and watered down version of what Ultron should really look like. Like if you put both Ultron designs right next to each other, you can really see the difference and kind of resembles the meme of Riz versus harassment. And I think Avengers Endgame, if you replace Thanos with Ultron, that is such a better story because they kind of just do the Ultron story but to replace Thanos with Ultron for some reason. It's still a good movie, but I feel like Ultron fits that story much better than what they try to do with Thanos. But that's just my thoughts on Ultron. I would love to know your guys' thoughts on this MCU version of Ultron. Maybe you like him. I know there's some people who do like this version of Ultron. Couldn't be me, but I would love to know if you guys personally like this MCU version of Ultron. I genuinely want to know why you like this version. Is it because maybe he was your first introduction to this version of Ultron? Maybe you just grew up with this version of Ultron and kind of believe this is how Ultron should be, because I grew up on the animated stuff and I believe that's just generally my version of Ultron. So let me know down in the comments what your guys' favorite version of Ultron is. Is it the comics? Is it the animated stuff? Is it the MCU stuff? Let me know down below. And if you guys enjoyed this video, the least you could do is like and subscribe. It would be very much appreciated. 99% of the people who watch my videos aren't even subscribed, so don't be that 99%. Be that 1% and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope to see you guys next time. Later, hater. Peace.